We are live. Welcome to Learning the Constitution, episode 2. What's going on there, Mister Gibbs? I'm sorry, I was the one that screwed this one up today.
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat and it says, "Yeah, I'm waiting for Doug." I'm like, I was there, man. Waiting in the queue. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. Hey,
It
you know
happens.
what? We're gonna have to do something with you because I don't know what the problem is on the connection, but there is a severe lag with your audio and the video. Like the video is way behind the audio. Your
Yeah, no, it's
audio is
been
right
doing
on
that.
time.
It's been doing that for about a month or two, and I am probably within the next 7 days going to buy a new laptop that has much more memory and can handle it. I just think what's happened is as we've proceeded, this computer has more in it or whatever.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I think you may be using too many resources at one time. And
Well, I do have to say that I've got a son in the house who uses the internet, and since we
he
don't
okay,
communicate,
if he's using the internet right now, he needs to not use the internet right now.
now I can't get into that with him.
Is it a gaming system? Is he playing
Yes,
games?
I have no choice on that. There's dynamics there I do not want to get into.
Okay. All right, yeah, because if that's the case, we're gonna have to do something to remedy that in some fashion because because from a production value we have to put out a good quality product. So I don't
Sure,
want to.
sure.
I'm not gonna get into
Well,
that.
well,
So
oh, that'll probably be resolved in the next couple months too, because he's supposed to leave again. But
okay, all right. So okay, well, anyway, that no enough airing of dirty laundry. We don't need to do that, but we need to
yeah.
we need to put out a good show. So all right. So, guys, apologize for the delay in the audio and the video and whatnot, but we will be working to remedy that. So, um, today we are going over the introduction, and well, we're basically kind of wrapping up the introduction and going over the preamble, and then we're also going to be talking, and as part of this particular class, this iteration of what we're doing is we're going to be talking about something that is of present day. And Mr. Gibbs sent me a less or a was a link the other day talking about the IRS with the what was it,
Supreme Court case. Yeah.
Supreme Court case with the IRS. So um, anyway, that's what we're going to be talking about today. We'll probably be doing that for about the last 15 minutes of the class. So between now and about 4:45 today, we're going to be talking preamble, introduction, and preamble. So, Mr. Gibbs, take it away, sir.
Well, I appreciate being here. Thank you for having me. And for those of you who are familiar with who I am and have heard me speak before, you know what you're in for. For those of you who have not, I teach, I am a historian. I teach U.S. Constitution classes to adults in Southern California, as well as U.S. history to homeschool high schoolers. I have a government textbook I wrote back in 2019. I am publishing a U.S. history textbook, probably should be available by the end of July. And and the reason why we go through all of this is because how can you be an advocate for American liberty if you don't understand the foundation of what it is all about? And the way I like to explain it is the Constitution is our owner's manual. And how can you fix the car in your driveway? Start turning wrenches. If you don't know the owner's manual, if you haven't read it, you don't know how it's supposed to properly operate. So to me, the first step to advocacy as an American is to understand how it's supposed to run in the first place. We know things are messed up. We know things are not operating properly. We know that already. But what is the proper way supposed to operate? And then from there, what steps can we take to move it back in that direction? Now, that said, I am a pretty optimistic person. I am not going to be someone here that's necessarily going to be the deliverer of bad news, because I don't think there's bad news. I always see that there's hope. And I'm a firm believer that what's been going on in our country. Number one, as bad as it is, this is still the best place to live in the world, even as bad as it is. Number one, that's number one. Number two, the those who stand against the Constitution or oppose it, they have exposed themselves, which makes it even a bit easier for us to start turning things around. And thirdly and lastly, I believe, and this is just my faith, God has it. This is a ministry that I lead, and I do believe that we do win in the end. When I say win, this is a battle. We are at war. And so let's get into this study. Now, the United States of America, if you look at our system, there are many building blocks to that system. Like anything, the American Constitution and the American system of liberty was built block by block from a foundation. The walls went up, the ceiling went up, the roof went on, so on and so forth. And those foundations begin with two things. Number one, the idea that all of our rights, our natural rights, come from God. This a godly foundation, and second of all, a system of liberty, a liberty foundation. So you put those two together, and you have our system, and a part of that is also individualism, a free market economy, and the list goes on and on and on. The factors that led us to that, the events, include both Mosaic law of Moses from the Bible, laws of nature and of nature's God, as it says in the Declaration of Independence, and the Saxon system. Saxons were a barbarian tribe, basically of what today would be northern Germany and the southern Scandinavian area. And the Saxons were not an ethnic group. They were a group of tribes, barbarian tribes. Barbarian is a word that came from the Romans, because when they heard the barbarians of the North speak, they didn't understand the language. All they heard was bar, 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 bar. That's where the word barbarians come from. And the Saxons were tribes of that area that had come together under the same system. They believed in the same system. It was not an ethnic necessarily group. The British Isles were eventually invaded by the Jutes and the Angles and the Saxons. You've heard Anglo-Saxon, that's where that comes from. And the Angles pretty much took over what today would be northern England and Scotland. The Jutes controlled what today would be Kent, which is on the eastern side of England. And then the Saxons, the remainder, the rest of England and most of Wales. The Britons, which were the people before the Saxons came, and there's very little evidence that they even existed, because the Britons were pretty much wiped out. They were the peoples before the Anglos and the Saxons came here. For the most part, they were on the western shore of Wales and the western shore of southeast England at the time. That's where they retreated to, those who survived. The men were typically killed, and the women were then assimilated into the Saxon society. Now, that said, the Saxons believed in a system of limited government, innocent till proven guilty, jury by trial, and all the other things that we, your right to keep and bear arms, their sacks, that was their weapon. It was a short sword or a long knife, depending on how you look at it, and it was called a sax, and they always had that sax on them, and that was their symbol of liberty. If you didn't have a sax, you were not a free man. And the Romans came to call them Saxons because of that sax that they carried on their side. They also believed in representative government and natural rights that were dispensated by a supernatural power. They weren't necessarily Christians or something of that nature. They were pagans, but they did believe in one God, and they believed that that our rights come from that supernatural being, that creator. And that became the foundation. And if you look back, you could do this yourself online. If you look back at the history of inventions, you'll notice that almost all of the inventions in history, I shouldn't say almost all, but a vast majority of them came from countries that were either directly or indirectly a part of the British system. The British system being based on Saxon and Mosaic law. And, we got on that list at the top is United States. You've got Britain, you've got Israel, you've got Australia, South Africa, Botswana, India, so on, New Zealand, so forth. There are other countries that appear here and there on that list, but it is dominated by British colonials and Britain, because a free market system, entrepreneurialism that the Saxon system offers leads to innovation, leads to inventions, leads to prosperity, progress, and advancement. And our founding fathers were Englishmen. That was their history. They understood the Saxon system. They understood what it was about, where it came from, and why that had prospered on the British Isles. They also knew that the royalty, the monarchs, would often buck against that system. So there needed to be something better than what was in Britain, because the power players, the statists, kept grabbing control still, even though the system was a good one. So they needed to create something that limited power, that distributed power in such a way that what had been going on in Great Britain with a fight over power wouldn't happen in America with this Saxon system. And so they changed the Saxon system a little bit. They added checks and balances. They created a republic rather than a democracy. A Saxon system was a little more democratic than what ours is. And so over time, that is what we developed as. Now, we can get into the Magna Carta. We can get in, which I'll get into a little bit more later, which basically told the king, you are not the power player. You are, sitting here putting your people in the parliament. That's wrong. The parliament's supposed to be as strong or stronger than you. This is supposed to be a republic, in that case, a monarchy republic, but nonetheless a type of republic. And the parliament was supposed to be there to basically stand against the king should the king act in its statist manner. Then as time passed, you got your people at Plymouth, you got your Jamestown, you got religious freedom, you've got all of these different systems are growing. And actually in Jamestown and in Plymouth, they tried socialism first. Didn't work out. And so then they went back to the British free market system, and that's what prospered. But one more, before we get to the actual preamble, one more side trip I want to take to help you understand what was going on prior to this preamble, prior to this Constitution, is something that happened in 1662 originally. In 1662, the communities in Massachusetts were noticing, and this was going on throughout the colonies, that the churches didn't have as many people going to church. The pews were empty. So the ministers got together in a convention there around Boston, and they voted on just implementing something called the halfway covenant. In other words, their idea was to water down the word. That'll get more people in the pews. Tell them what they want to hear. That'll get them into the pews. Brilliant, right? Right. So all it did was then take our culture and our society from where it was in a bad place and make it worse faster. And by 1734, Jonathan Edwards, I got 5 books with all of the sermons in it. It's good stuff. Jonathan Edwards in Northampton, Massachusetts, like, well, that was a mistake. So 1734, he began to preach the word of God from a biblical standpoint, from a way it should be. And what began to happen is a revival. Now, why would there be a revival? Well, see, there's this funny thing about the word.
I wasn't even trying today, Doug.
Yeah, you just up in the yeah.
I didn't even try today. This is accidental.
Yeah, I see that.
My Crusader shirt.
So
I swear it was not planned.
Yeah, trust me, we're not passing memos through the week to each other. No,
we're not.
Matter of fact, if we talk to each other once or twice, that's an accomplishment.
Exactly. But, we do. And trust me, we do try. It's just but time constraints
between my schedule and your schedule. Yeah. But anyway,
so impossible. Anyway, continue.
So Jonathan Edwards, what he's doing by preaching the word is he is giving to the colonists in his area anyway. Now let me rephrase this correctly. The genuine article. He's preaching the genuine article, not this watered down version. And when you have the genuine, well, let me do a side note so you understand what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I used to work for a credit union. I handled a lot of money. Yeah. Oh, I worked for a credit
They
union for 4
trusted you
years.
with their money?
Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, I wasn't just, I didn't just work for the credit union. I was a counselor. I was the one that taught people how to use their account, help them find their mistakes. I also counseled people on their loan applications for consumer loans.
Wow.
Yeah. See, you learn something about me every day.
I just learned something about you, man. I don't know if I'd have walked into knowing what I know about you and walk in seeing you sitting
I'll make you feel a little better. In 1984, I was also one of the people who ran carrying the Olympic torch for a while.
Did you really?
Yeah. Ran it through parts of Corona.
No kidding. That's pretty cool.
In fact, I've got a newspaper
to say.
clipping I can show you of it. But anyway,
I have to say.
Yeah, I got all kinds of weird stuff people don't know about me.
But anyway, for those of you that don't know, the 1984 Olympics were in Los Angeles, and what he's saying is he got to carry the torch through Corona as it went into LA to light the Coliseum.
They do, and I was actually a member of the Corona High School varsity cross country team, and so the boys and the girls from the varsity team got to carry the torch. I think it was 6 miles, and each of us got to carry it half a mile. We ran together, and we would trade off each out, half mile.
The Olympics are in Los Angeles again in 1928.
Yeah, I've heard 1928, huh?
Yeah.
1928, you sure?
2028.
But anyway, get back to the credit union thing. Boy, I tell you, you're a whole different century, buddy.
I deserve that, boy. Woo, I am operating with a full deck today.
If you want to go back to a point of time, 1920 is not bad. It's the year later that really sucks.
Right. Exactly. That was right. That was right at the culmination of the Roaring 20s, and this is definitely not the 20s this year to this time are not roaring yet. Yeah. I'm hoping. We'll still have hope, but still got some time to redeem ourselves.
All right. So while I was working for the credit union as a loan counselor and as a counselor, and it's funny because whenever I'd counsel people on their accounts and they'd bounce a check, couldn't figure it out. Ladies, you're going to love this. About 90% of the time was because the husband had used the ATM and forgot to tell the wife. But anyway, they didn't have the money they thought they had, wrote a check. But anyway, so I handled a lot of money as a result. And because I handled so much money over the 4-year period, what happened was, because I was handling the genuine article all the time, twice in my career, a counterfeit bill came across my hands, and I knew it. I recognized it by touch because I handled the genuine article all the time. So it was easy to spot the fake. Now that brings us back to Jonathan Edwards. He's preaching the genuine article. So when you have a society that's based on faith, based on a moral standard, based on a moral foundation, based on the laws of God and of nature's God and laws of nature and of nature's God, that's how it goes in the Declaration.
Yep.
Then it's easier to spot the fakes. It's easier to spot what's wrong or what's evil. See, right now in our society, it's sort of like me handling money. And let's say I handle a little bit of the real thing, a little bit of the counterfeits. In fact, it was all mixed up. I would never know the difference. That's what's happening today in our society. There's a little bit of everything, and nobody knows the difference.
It's a great analogy. That's a great analogy, Doug. I didn't know where you were going with that, but that's actually a really good analogy.
Oh, thank you. So, and that's the reason why I tell my to groups I speak to all the time, how are we going to get our political house in order if we don't get our religious house in order? So it is important for us to be handling or experiencing or enveloping ourselves in the genuine article, and in this case, Scripture. And that's what was going on. So as they enveloped themselves in the genuine article with Jonathan Edwards' sermons, then what began to happen was a revival. Suddenly, Northampton, Massachusetts, which is where he was at, began to prosper. A revival was going on. People were coming forward and converting to Christ. People were renewing their vows to Christ, and so on and so forth. And what happened was the society got better. There was less crime. The economic condition strengthened. The stores were doing better. People were working harder. And they were going through this incredible prosperity with this revival. Well, it didn't take long for the surrounding communities to see what was going on. And before long, they began to mimic the same thing. Their pastors began to use Jonathan Edwards' sermons. Before you knew it, 100 communities in the Massachusetts were going through revival. Today, we call it the Great Awakening. And it got so big, it was such a big deal that there was a pastor in Great Britain, his name was George Whitefield. And George Whitefield comes over, he checks it out, and he listens to Jonathan Edwards speak, and he's like, wow, what an incredible message. This needs to spread to all of the colonies. And so he did. He visited the colonies 7 times over the next few years to make sure that Jonathan Edwards' message went all the way through the colonies. Now, the reason why I tell you this story before I start reading the preamble is because I want you to understand the foundation of our system. We have the Saxon system, and we have a Great Awakening. And with that Great Awakening, we recognize now, because of the genuine article, what's right and what's wrong. The fake now, like when handling money with counterfeits, is now easier to spot. And that's when the colonists began to go, whoa, wait a second. We thought we had it good. The British are treating us in a tyrannical manner. We know this because now we have enveloped ourselves in the genuine article, the Word of God. And they began to resist. They began to work to change it. They began to become abolitionists against slavery. In fact, the Commonwealth of Virginia wasn't a state yet. It was a colony, Commonwealth of Virginia, tried to abolish slavery over 60 times before the Revolutionary War. And the Parliament and the British Crown said no. Why? Because America had become nothing more than a revenue source. We want you to produce it as fast as you can, as cheap as you can. Here's your slaves. And the colonists actually were bucking against that. I know the 1619 Project says otherwise. Oh, that Revolutionary War was to preserve slavery. No, it was to begin the process to get rid of slavery. And in fact, this idea that it was no taxation without representation, while it was a minor battle cry, that didn't begin to be taught as a major battle cry and as the primary reason until the 1930s. Because, see, the socialists that have been infiltrating our system wanted you to think that our American Revolution was fought for an economic reason, just like the socialist revolution will be. And it wasn't an economic reason. It was a statism versus liberty reason, and it was we need to get rid of slavery reason. And that is not being taught anymore. So now,
lots of things not being taught anymore, Doug.
Well, that's why I've got the new book, the new history book. I can't wait until it's out there because I'm putting stuff in there. I'm not going to talk about it because we've got other things to talk about, but I'm so excited about it. All right, so now that we've gone through all that, let's start reading on the preamble now. Okay. Now, when I first learned the preamble and I was first able to recite it by memory, I learned it by watching Schoolhouse Rock, which means the only way I could recite it was by singing it. Like Schoolhouse Rock.
Let's.
It's not going to happen. Trust me.
The audience singing today.
Matter of fact, I've told people you will never, ever see me sing because you know what I know that you don't know
today.
Yeah, you know what I know that you don't know. I couldn't carry a tune if it had a handle.
Right. I believe that.
Trust me. I'm not going to put you through that.
I believe that.
All right. So now the first 3 words are iconic. We the people. Throughout the world, you hear we the people, and the people who hear it throughout the world know it's an American thing. They may not know it comes from our Constitution. In fact, most Americans think it comes from the Declaration of Independence. Trust me, I've done a few man on the street things and found that out myself. But we the people, the first words of the preamble of the Constitution of the United States, those iconic words are not just, well, what the heck, we'll use those. It was well thought out. Now, the preamble itself, this entire preamble that you see on your screen right now, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. That was written last. They had already written the whole Constitution.
Interesting that the is not capitalized.
It is interesting. We'll get into that in a minute. Now, that said, we'll get there. As I tell my wife all the time when we're on a trip and she's like, are we there yet? She's like Bart Simpson. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? We'll get there. Hang on a second. We'll get there. So the preamble, now the whole Constitution wasn't written where they were all in the room. They just wrote it. Most of it was written in committee. You guys will handle the legislative branch. You guys will handle the executive branch. I want you guys to handle the natural born citizens clause. Want you guys to handle where we talk about original authority, and so on and so forth. The preamble, the committee for the preamble was run by a guy named Governor Morris. Governor Morris pretty much wrote it, and then he had people around him kind of helping him write it. And what would happen is the committee then would write it, send it to the main body. The main body would review it. This is where Madison's notes come in. And then they would approve it or disapprove it or ask for amendments, and then it'd go back into committee, and they would work on it some more and then bring it back out and then just discuss it. And if it wasn't fully accepted, then it'd go back into committee again, and so on and so forth. But we the people was a part of the Constitution before they even wrote the preamble. They already knew they wanted it to begin with that. That was there from the very beginning. In fact, James Madison recommended it with his Virginia Virginia plan. So why we the people? Why do they choose that? And it's interesting because you go back to Magna Carta, you kind of get a clue. And what it is in the Magna Carta, the barons, which were basically low-level nobility, they were the property owners. And they knew that what was going on with the monarchy was wrong. That what was going on with the monarchy, the king, the monarchy was acting in a manner that was outside the Saxon system. The parliament is supposed to be the strongest part of the government, or at least equal with the monarch. The monarch's not supposed to overrun the parliament. The parliament's the voice of the people. And what was happening is the king was actually even making sure he got his own people in the parliament, so it become a rubber stamp for what he was doing. The barons were not happy with it. Now, they were, for the most part, illiterate, though. So in order to write the Magna Carta, they went to the clergy. So the barons and the clergy, they're working together on this Magna Carta, and it begins with, the barons. Then they change it to all barons. Then they get to thinking, this isn't just for the barons. This is for every free person in Britain, in England. So if we're going to hammer the king with this document and demand that we go back to the Saxon system, something that's more based on liberty, then it's really for all of us. So they change it from all the barons to all freemen. Now, this is the foundation of history for these Englishmen that are in the Constitutional Convention. And so we, the people, developed from that. But understand something. Their history says, well, we all the freemen. Well, then, if they were to follow specifically what was given by the Magna Carta, they would have put we the citizens of the United States, or we the free people of the United States. But they didn't put that because the free people aren't the only people they're including. The citizens aren't the only people included there. We the people entails everybody, including those enslaved. Let me repeat that. We the people includes everybody, including those enslaved. The purpose, remember, of writing the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and the American Revolution was to begin the process to get rid of slavery. This was a primary goal. I know you won't hear that today. I'm telling you from my studies, and I could show you resources if you want to see them. Let me know. Get a hold of me or Ron.
We need to do actually. We actually need to do.
Put the resources up on screen or something.
No, we actually need to do an episode on that. Take one of these classes and like put the Constitution on hold for a day and show that, because I think that would be very interesting.
Okay,
I think that's significant because there's a whole swath of this of the segment of our society who believes that our country was founded by racism and white supremacy and all that other woke.
Well, here, let me tell you about some of that. All right, so for those of you who are familiar with the Declaration of Independence, there is an iconic phrase in the Declaration of Independence that everybody knows: all men are created equal. Right? We all have heard that. And then we are told by that swath of people that you were referring to a moment ago, Ron,
Mm-hmm.
Well, that didn't include the slaves. Well, first of all, the key word is created. Regardless of position in life, we're all created equal, first of all. And we know for a fact, that Thomas Jefferson meant that included the slaves. And here's why. Number one, there was 168 words of anti-slavery language removed from the from the Declaration of Independence on July 1st, 1776, because 2 states of the 11 weren't fond of it. This is in the original draft of the Jefferson's Declaration of Independence. You can look it up. It's easy to find. 168 words of anti-slavery language removed. Now, understand something, first of all. They'll tell you, well, this country was founded on racist principles and wanting to keep slavery. Well, if that was the case, then why did 11 out of the 13 states vote in approval of that 168 words of anti-slavery language? Let me repeat that. 11 of the 13 states approved of the anti-slavery language in the Declaration of Independence. But it was removed because Georgia and South Carolina was against it. And South Carolina and Georgia, as the 2 southernmost colonies/states, becoming states, were a military buffer between the rest of the states and the Spanish Empire to the south in Florida. They really, really wanted South Carolina and Georgia to be a part of the Union for military reasons, among other things.
So I want to say something real quick because it's interesting that you're talking about this today. I was watching a podcast on the Abbeville Institute. Brian McClanahan was talking about Jefferson Davis's farewell address that he gave when he led the basically the Southern delegation of out and he implored the Senate, listen, we're leaving because we feel it's our duty to do this. And it's, and one of the contentious things of the day was that all men are created equal. And we're going to read what he said here. He said, Jefferson booted and spurred who ride over the rest of mankind that men were created equal, meaning that the men of the political community, that there was no divine right to rule, that no man inherited the right to govern, that there were no classes by which power of the body politic, that these were the great principles announced by and for which they made the Declaration. Essentially, it was like it wasn't necessarily suggesting that every single person was created equal regardless of race. It didn't have anything to do with race. It had to do with that all men had I'm
actually on my way to that. I'm
okay.
going to get to that. But
Then
what
I'll
I'm going
let
to
you.
refer to is not what Jefferson Davis had to say, but what his vice president, Alexander Stevenson, had to say in his cornerstone speech. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not. All right. So all men are created equal. First, so let's set it up with what I was going to say here. So in that 168 words of anti-slavery language that 11 states approved of, when Jefferson, when he referred to the slaves, he used the word men. And he didn't just use the word men, he put it in all caps, capital M, capital E, capital N. Emphasis. So in other words, Jefferson wanted you to make sure you understood, and also understand that they were using a classical English. So using the masculine, they meant everyone, not just men, but that's beside the point. So when he was using the word men and putting it all caps, he put an emphasis on that when it came to those enslaved. In other words, he's saying everyone, that slaves are men too. And this is the same guy who wrote all men are created equal. So when he wrote all men are created equal, he meant those enslaved also, because it wasn't about slavery. It was about getting rid of nobility. It was that's what really all men created equal is about. And so when it says we the people of the United States, not in the United States, but of the United States, a part of the system, it includes the slaves. Now, as I just mentioned to Ron a moment ago, let's not just believe me or Thomas Jefferson. Let's talk to the vice president of the Confederate States of America, Alexander Stevenson, and his cornerstone speech. who writes, while Jefferson, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact words off the top of my head, while Jefferson said there would be no nobility in America and that all people were created equal, we believe differently. We believe that the black man is lesser. So while the racist bastard basically said what he believed in that speech, he also gave us the clue that, just like me, he knew that Jefferson, when he wrote all men are created equal, and when they wrote we the people be in the Constitution, they meant everyone, including those enslaved. Why? Because they knew that what they were doing was the process of getting rid of slavery, and these people as well would eventually be citizens on equal footing under the law in the United States in the near future, because that was the purpose. In fact, Frederick Douglass, has used one more person to help us out here. Frederick Douglass, escaped slave. After he had escaped, he had gone to Britain for a book tour because he'd written a book. And he was in Britain for his book tour, but he was a fugitive slave. He could at any time be arrested and sent back to his slave owner. So he had written this book, went to Britain on a book tour, and 2 British women paid for his freedom. They got a hold of him and sent checks to, or money to, I don't know how they did it, but I know the story that they paid for his freedom. They paid his enslaver in the South that he had escaped from for his freedom so that he would not be a fearful fugitive slave anymore. And so this guy, when he first was no longer a slave, he joined the abolition movement, and they would argue to him, well, that Constitution is a pro-slavery document. Well, he couldn't read yet. So he just had to take the word for it. Then he learned how to read, and he read the document. Then he studied the document, which leads to 2 of his quotes that are among my favorites. 1, I hated the Constitution until I read it. That's like one of the greatest quotes of all time, matter of fact. 2, I have studied the Constitution and have determined that it is not a pro-slavery document.
Mm-hmm.
This is Frederick Douglass. This is not some rich white guy who's trying to make power for himself because of his privilege, as we might hear from certain people. This is a guy who had escaped slavery, who was a part of the abolitionist movement, and before he had studied it, hated the Constitution because he had been told it's a pro-slavery document. We, the people of the United States, includes all of us, no matter our position, because all men are created equal. What is meant by that is there is no nobility. There is no privileged class. There are no barons and dukes, princes and squires and knights and kings and royal judges. There are Americans. And that was the point.
Exactly.
So we, the people of the United States, in order to tells you there's something getting ready to happen. Someone says to you, in order to, I'm going to do this in order to, well, you know something's coming that they're going to accomplish. That's what it means. So we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense. Those 4 things are the reasons for the writing of the Constitution. Now let's go over them. To form a more perfect union. I've always, early on, before I really got deeper into my studies, I always found it fascinating that they put more perfect union. My joke has always been, and helps people understand my kind of confusion at first. How do you make something more perfect? If it's perfect, it's about as perfect as they get, right? Making something more perfect is like making a woman more pregnant, right? It's not going to happen. It's already happened. She's already pregnant. You can't make her more pregnant.
Right.
How can it be more perfect? It's already perfect. But then you get into the biblical background of that word, perfect. And you talk to a few pastors that have done some studies about the etymology of that word and what was really meant. What they're putting is, while they use the word perfect, they thought it was pretty good. They're making it better is basically what it's saying. But the way to really put it, from a biblical standpoint, a more complete union. Well, that makes a lot of sense. That's exactly what they needed, especially since the old government under the Articles of Confederation wasn't working. Shays' Rebellion Well, I'm not going to get into all the deep details of that. Sometime we ought to do a deep dive on that one too, because it's very fascinating too. But Shays' Rebellion, in a nutshell, was the Continental Congress had printed money that wasn't worth anything, didn't have any gold foundation, didn't have any other foundation, just, hey, it's worth something because we say so. And it was worthless. And the veterans from the Revolutionary War tried to pay their creditors, their debts, or buy supplies with that, and it wasn't doing the job. And so the creditors wanted to take them to court. They didn't have enough supplies for their farms, things like that. So they're angry. So they rebelled. They got their rifles and they went into the streets and they started blocking the steps of the courthouses to stop their creditors from being able to get to the judge to file a lawsuit against them. They even tried to take over the armory in Springfield, Massachusetts. And some people even got killed. It got ugly. And the state of Massachusetts,
people tend to take personal their money.
Yeah. Or it's like the old joke, you can call me names. You can scream at my wife. You can beat my kids, but you better not touch my money or I'll kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you ever heard that one? Yeah. But anyway. So these guys, they're upset because they're trying to survive here in this new country. And it's a new country because they made it a new country. They fought the war. And they're given this garbage, this fiat money that's worth nothing. So,
are you okay? Or what are you reading?
Well, I'm looking at the chat room, and there's a lot of things I want to respond to that we don't have time to. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
Some of them not necessarily accurate, but for another time, I'll have to take notes or make sure these people are here for us in the future so that we can have these discussions.
I'll copy the entire thing and then send it to you so you can have a record of it. So
all right, because I would like to.
Because we're getting close to the time where we want to cover the IRS story.
Yeah, we are, and I'm not even done with the preamble yet, but I am going to get there. So the union wasn't working, and the state of Massachusetts is like, hey, Continental Congress, we need help here. And he says, well, use your militia. It's our militia that's rebelling. What wound up happening is the merchants, today would be corporations, the merchants in Boston put together a mercenary force, mostly Europeans and former Tories that had gone to Canada. Shouldn't say former Tories, they're still Tories, to come in and take down these insurrectionists. And it got uglier. And so now we got the people of the time going, this is not good. We got a problem here. This system isn't working. So 1786 Annapolis Convention, they meet, they decide they're going to fix the articles or write a new constitution starting in May of 1787. Hence where we're at now. So a more perfect union. We need a more perfect union. Establish justice to create a judiciary. They already had justice. The states had their own justice, but there was no justice system for disputes between the states, border disputes, maritime disputes, so on and so forth. But also the justice has a twin word here. It has a double meaning. Establish justice. Justice is to be just. Justice is the rule of law and to do the right thing. Justice is justice. And under the rule of law, God's law, the laws of nature and nature's God, we are also establishing justice for the union in that manner. So it has kind of a double meaning here. Then we have to, after justice, ensure domestic tranquility. Don't you like the way they spell ensure there with an I? Ensure domestic tranquility. The states were fighting like cats and dogs, or as I like to joke, like sailors and Marines. And they were fighting over turf, commerce, trade, tariffs, you name it, they were fighting over it. So the federal government's going to act as a mediator between the states when they're going at it to ensure domestic tranquility. And then provide for a common defense. All the states are contributing to this for a common defense.
Mm-hmm.
They have their individual defense, the militias. In fact, the militias were there for them to protect themselves from each other originally because they were going at it. Getting back to that ensure domestic tranquility thing. So a common defense, an army, a navy, a Marine Corps, and eventually the other services in order to protect the Union from invaders. Then we have our two results that are going to happen once those reasons are in place and taken care of properly. Promote the general welfare. Welfare is not a check in the mail from the government. Welfare is a condition of all's well. Condition of all's well throughout the United States. What kind of condition? A general condition of all's well. If things are going right, if the federal government is doing its job, if those reasons that I just went through are being properly applied, there will be a general condition of all's well throughout the country. Promote the general welfare. And secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Secure, keep in place where it belongs, not protect, not guarantee, secure. Secure is also used in Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that these rights shall be, now I just blanked, and to secure these rights, that's the right way to say it, governments must be instituted among men. The word secure is there because your rights belong to you. God gave them to you. To secure them is keep them where they belong. Like you secure a child in a car seat, right? Get in the crash, baby stays where the baby belongs. We have a problem, your rights stay where they belong. Secured because government is restraining itself and others if there's a clash of rights.
And speaking of welfare, I just think it's important to go back to the 1828 dictionary, the 1828 Webster's dictionary, where it talks about welfare. Noun, well and fair, good faring, exemption from misfortune, sickness, calamity, or evil, the enjoyment of health and the common blessings of life, prosperity, happiness applied to persons, or exemption from any unusual evil or calamity, the enjoyment of peace and prosperity, or the ordinary blessings of society and civil government applied to states.
A condition of all's well.
Not a check in the mail.
Not a check in the mail. All right. Now, very good. Now we've got.
Sorry to derail you, but I just.
That's okay. Secure the blessings of liberty. Blessings of liberty are your natural rights. Keep them in place where they belong to ourselves and our posterity. Now, see, the founding fathers did something very interesting. Back then, the tendency was to capitalize words for emphasis. Matter of fact, this is what they taught in the colleges back then. Now, italicizing was around. The Romans invented italicizing 500 AD. But you're handwriting this document. You're not going to italicize. You're not going to use italics. You're going to capitalize. And so you see it say, secure the blessings of liberty, blessings capitalized, liberty capitalized, emphasis on those words, to ourselves and our posterity. Ourselves is lowercase o. Posterity is capitalized. You ever heard people say, well, those founding fathers, they were just a bunch of rich, powerful people who did everything for themselves. It was all for their own power and money. No, that's not what they said here. Ourselves is lowercase. They didn't do it. I mean, they did do it for themselves because they put it there, ourselves, but the emphasis is on the word posterity. In other words, they did it for themselves, but they especially did it for you. Those not yet born, posterity, their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, and all of the generations afterward. Capital P, posterity. They tell you that right there in the preamble. And finally, to ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States. Now, if you look up establish, if you want, or ordain, if you want to do that, go for it, Ron. Look up ordain. Ordain's an interesting word. If you look up ordain, and he's doing it right here in real time, so let's pull it up. To ordain is to do what? To set, to establish.
Yeah. The verb, to set, to establish in a particular office or order, hence to invest with a ministerial function or sacerdotal power. I don't even know what that means.
All right, now stop right there. So it means two things. One, to establish. Well, if it means establish and it says to ordain and establish this Constitution, kind of repetitive, aren't they? To establish and establish. But they put ordain in there for a reason because of that second part, that religious part. To ordain and establish. To ordain is to establish it with the approval of God, with the blessing of God.
Settle in the pastoral office with the customary forms and solemnities as to ordain a minister of the gospel. In America, men are ordained over a particular church and congregation, or as evangelists without the charge of a particular church, or as deacons in the Episcopal Church.
To appoint and to decree. So we are establishing this Constitution, ordain and establish. We're ordaining it and establishing it. We're establishing it in the name of God. Now, the word God, G-O-D, is not in the Constitution anywhere. And people say, well, that's just proof that, God's not in the Constitution. They weren't godly men. They were secular men. No, because God's all throughout the Constitution. He shows up 3 times right here in the preamble. Establish justice, blessings of liberty, and do ordain and establish. Right? But did you know that the word God does not appear in the book of Esther in the Old Testament?
Of course I do.
But God's there, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
It's not about who God is. It's about what he does. If you read that book, that's what.
And the word Jew and the word Jew was first mentioned in Babylon because that's where they were from, Judea.
Mm-hmm. So that's your preamble. I bet you nobody's ever talked to you about the preamble like that before.
No,
now, this took about
not.
10 minutes longer than I had suspected, but still, we got about 5 minutes left.
Yeah, well, are you pressed for time tonight, or could you go a few minutes over?
I can go a few minutes over. That's fine.
So I know that this was something that that Doug shared with me, the Polselli versus the IRS, and essentially, this sounds very wonderful, as though the IRS basically, they don't need to request permission to get your documents anymore if you do something with somebody else. Am I understanding it correctly?
Yeah, basically what it is Section 7609A of the Internal Revenue Service Code, Internal Revenue Code, allows the IRS in certain situations to summon records from a third party without necessarily getting approval from the person that they're looking into. However, what this ruling did is it pretty much gave the IRS the ability to do that in any case. And what's even more frightening about it is it was a 9-0 decision. All 9 justices agreed that the IRS should have the ability to look into your bank records or other records that are on a third party without notice, without contacting you. And that is a good sign of what's going on in this country. Now we have to ask ourselves, is that constitutional? Well, first of all, is the IRS itself constitutional? Or let's back up. Is the direct taxation that we are going through originally intended? It is technically constitutional because 16th Amendment. I can get into the debate about whether or not the 16th Amendment was properly ratified, because it wasn't originally. But eventually other states did ratify it. So down the road, it did get it. But when it was put into place, it actually wasn't properly ratified yet. It was a law that was never supposed to be a law. In fact, it was originally proposed expecting the states to reject it so that the Republicans could use that as a weapon against the Democrats who were trying to push the Bailey bill. Oh, that's I haven't read that article, but The Law That Never Was by Cleon Skousen is a really good one too on the 16th Amendment. But here's the thing. Let's go back to the Founding Fathers. So what did they put in the Constitution about taxation? Well, what they put in the Constitution about taxation in Article 1, Section 9, for those who want to follow along, no capitation or other direct tax shall be laid, unless in proportion to the census or enumeration herein before directed to be taken. So in other words, they're not supposed to directly tax people or anything else unless there is a enumeration, a census taken. What does that mean? Well, what happened was the federal government directly taxed the states. And it was based on the census and enumeration. In other words, the states paid the income tax. And because it was based on the enumeration, the census, they paid based on the percentage of their population of the whole country. So right now, California is 11.9% of the total population of the United States. Now, I'm not even getting into the quibble about whether or not that 11.9 includes illegal aliens. Probably does, but that's beside the point. So if we were on the old rules, the federal government would request, see, taxation against you, direct tax, they take it. But see, when it came to the states, it wasn't taken. It was requested. Hey, California, it's time for our budget. 11.9%. Here's our budget. California looks it over. Okay, fine. We'll pay it. Well, wait a second. That's unconstitutional. Fix it or we don't get the money from us.
Mm-hmm.
What a great system. I was talking to a Hamiltonian one time, and when I say Hamiltonian, this is someone who absolutely adores Alexander Hamilton. Me, not so much. And she says, well, yeah, but Doug, the states weren't paying their fair share. Well, yeah, that was kind of the point. If it was unconstitutional, if it was tyrannical, if it was a bad budget, the federal government was requesting from the states could say no. But now that there's a direct taxation against you, you can't say anything about it. And now, thanks to our wonderful Polselli v. What was it now?
The IRS.
Polselli versus the Internal Revenue Service. Thank you. Now, because of that case, which, by the way, the opinion was argument and the opinion was not very long ago, just 2 weeks ago. May 20th. March. Oh, I'm sorry. The opinion was, should I say, issued just a few weeks ago, May 18th. It was argued back in March, but argued March 29th. Saying, IRS can do whatever it wants. It can look in your records. There's nothing to do about it because there was this guy who had like $2 million of back taxes. And, they had to be able to do that in order to get them, to take it.
Well,
this is what's going on when it comes to our Constitution.
There's going to come a point in time. There's going to come a point in time when people are, it's incumbent upon us that we have to learn the Constitution so that we can stand up for the things that the way things are supposed to be. If it's like if you don't know the rules of the game, how can you play? Right.
Or how about this? How can you fix the broken car in your driveway if you haven't read the owner's manual or know how it's supposed to properly function?
Well, that's true too. But
start turning wrenches. Oh no, I'm fixing it. No, you're doing more damage than good because you don't know how it's supposed to work.
Right.
Read the owner's manual. Become a mechanic, or at least learn from some mechanics, or at least get some mechanical skills, and then go fix it. I want you people to be constitutional mechanics.
Right.
That's why we do this. That's why I'm here. That's why I want you to be a part of this class. I am so glad that you're here.
Well, we've got about 120 people live today, and last week I didn't look and see, but let's check it out because I think it was. Let's see what we had last week for the class. In total, we had about 2.8 thousand views on the class last week.
So that's on Rumble. Now you're doing a couple on YouTube, and then you're going to drop it.
No, I stopped. Well, I stopped doing the one on Rumble or on YouTube because I thought that the problem with the lag and the
that was part of
it. I thought
this lag kind of lightened up as we moved along. He probably got off his game.
Yeah.
But I am going to get a new computer though. I've got some people that have made some donations specifically so that I can get more equipment. And they told me that's what it was for. So
good. Well, listen, I want to thank everybody for their time today. It's we're about 5:03, so we're right about that hour mark.
Let me plug a couple things if you don't mind.
Go ahead. No, by all means, go right ahead.
My latest book, which came out last December, is called Repeal Democracy. I would love for you to read it. It explains the difference between a democracy and a republic. And the book is like, this thick, and each chapter begins, if we were democracy, this is how we would do it, but we do it this way. And then I explain why. I would love for you to have that book. So check it out. My store right now is shut down. It should be up in a matter of a few weeks, but so right now, if you want to get it now, Amazon. But down the road, we will have our store back up
Well,
again.
I'll show you here.
Secondly,
I'll show you here. If you go into the the
Rumble.
details of the video, this is all the information is here. I have all of your links and all of your
very nice.
all of your books and everything.
All right, and the one that says Political Pistachio.
Mm-hmm.
You can either go to Political Pistachio and read what I write in my blog, or you can go there, donate. You even have the donate link for PayPal, right?
Yeah, right here at the bottom.
Yeah. Okay. And if you're like, well, I'm not using PayPal. Screw that noise, and no problem, because you could go to Venmo, Douglas-Gibbs-3, Douglas-Gibbs-3 at Venmo, and then when it asks you for the last four of my phone number, 3975. And then if you say, well, you know what, I'd just rather Zelle it to you, Doug. And that's no problem too. Douglas V. Gibbs at yahoo.com. Douglas V. Gibbs at yahoo.com if you want to help support this ministry, because fact is, I see it as a ministry and it always needs support. This is how I fund a lot of things. I'm getting new equipment and people are always helping out, man. I would love for you to be a part of that. All right. I am out of here. Appreciate this time with you, Ron. I think.
My pleasure.
I'm always jazzed that every time I look at your background, I see the United States Navy flag. That just puts a grin on my face. So,
yes, well, I always get into a debate with Alpha because he's a jarhead, and I always have to remind him that he's part of the Navy. I just like, dude, you're just naval infantry. You just we're the men's department.
I'm sure he takes that real well. I have a friend, Harry, who was in the United States Navy, and seriously, I'm the one that always drives. He's always gotten a ride for me. I don't even know what the inside of his car looks like, but he said that when he got in the Marine Corps and he got his first paycheck and it said Department of the Navy, he thought it was a mistake. He didn't realize. And then when he went on a Westpac on or went to the Middle East on an LST, which is my second ship that I served aboard. I said, what's your first thoughts when you're on that LST and took that, trip, to the Middle East? He said, thank God I joined the Marine Corps. That ship was making noises boats aren't supposed to make. I said, yeah, welcome to my world, buddy. But anyway, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, audience, for being here. Appreciate you. We'll see you next week.
Yep.
And we're permanently moving it here to 4:00 Pacific. So for those of you who are like, prefer that time, great. If it's a problem, sorry. We went to
I think I think the overwhelming consensus that I heard was that a lot of people liked it that it was an hour later. So
okay. Very good.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks again, everybody. Want to appreciate just want to acknowledge that we appreciate you for taking the time to join us here on the Learning the Constitution class, and we will see you next Tuesday at 4 p.m. So I guess what is the same bat time, same bat channel? Can we say that to some of the people? Some of the people in the audience may not know what that is.
Well, let me say two things. Number one, there's no show without you, so thank you for being here. Number two, united we stand, combined we kick butt. God bless America, my friends. God bless you. We'll see you next time.
Amen. Thanks, guys. See you next week.